Okay, we should be live. Yes. Okay, I guess we are live. Please say something on the chat if you can hear me okay, and we will start the Q&A session for April 2018. Yay! Hello everyone. Hello to Anna M, to Trails TM, and to Kaneki Shiba, and to Valentin Michelet, and to Diego Martinez Barcelo, and all of you who are not chatting on the chat. I have put the chat like in here so you can put your comments live, and I have a lot of questions from you. So yeah, this will be interesting Q&A, I think. And also, of course, we have the books. So I think I will begin from a short update. The book, the Tokyo Storefronts, is out and it's in the stores all around Japan. We actually went with Kana to two stores that are close to us, which actually had the book just like there on a shelf. Good morning, and yeah, good evening. And the book is selling okay. Actually, we went to a pretty high place on Amazon because the book is was actually, I don't know right now because I haven't checked for some hours, but we were first in most of the art book categories on Japanese Amazon, and on the whole Japanese Amazon we were about 50th in the peak moment. So that's really nice place for an art book to be, because usually they it's really hard to go like below 3000th place on Japanese Amazon. So getting 50 is like, so thank you very much for promoting the book, because a lot of you who received the book on like pre-order tweeted and Instagrammed about the book, which gave another boost to the sales. So yeah, I'm really happy about that, and thank you very much for this. And here, like here, you can see my 10 copies of the books that I got from the publisher, and from those copies I will give away today two of the books. And the stickers that you could have got on Amazon look like this. This is a package of 5 stickers. There are 5 stories inside, and the I will give away 2 books and 2 packet of stickers together, and I'll later sign the book with your name. Yeah, and the animation is going forward. I'm really busy at the moment doing the backgrounds. I still have only like 2 weeks to finish all the backgrounds, and together with Heikala-san, so with Miss Heikala, which is helping me with the backgrounds, and another person from Japanese background studio, so a studio that is specializes in making backgrounds for animation, for example, for Studio Ghibli movies also. Is taking part and making some additional backgrounds for me, so I can manage to make everything on time. So I'm really happy that I can collaborate with such awesome people that make some really nice works, and made, for example, backgrounds for animations that I love for Studio Ghibli movies and etc. So I'm also really happy about that, and the animation is kind of starting to take shape, because we already had the first like rough check. So everything is still black and white in like pencil lines, but it moves so I can see if everything is okay. And we also had a first meeting about the music for the animation. There is no like proper dialogue, so there will be no like different language versions, so you will be able to see it on YouTube and just understand everything, I hope. So yeah, that's some good news. Also, thank you for all your congratulations about the book. I'm really happy about it. But the most important thing for me, the thing I am most happy about, is that people are buying the book and not only um, writing comments like, "Oh, nice pictures," or "Oh, I will use it for reference." This is also okay, but there is a lot of people who actually say like, "Oh, I love this book because this book reminds me when I was in Japan," or "This book makes me feel nostalgic," or "This book makes me want to go around my like neighborhood and explore the shops and the buildings around me." So this was my kind of um, goal while making this book. So I'm really happy that I could make it, and this book is actually making this kind of impression on you. So yeah, I hope that I can make something that is different than most of the top illustration books right now, that are just books like how to make manga or how to sketch with watercolors or something like that, that focus on the how to draw or how to paint, but not on the content. So this is also something I was thinking about while making this book. Okay, so the book, the illustration, and the comic, which I will get back to when I finish the animation. And I have the Polish and Japanese and English version to do. And the English and the Polish and Japanese version I will do here with help of Kana also. But the English version I will post a plea to you, so some of you can check my weak English and correct stuff if it needs correcting. So if you are a native English speaker and you feel kind of confident about correcting text and doing like editorial stuff, let me know when I post this on Patreon. But it will be about probably like 2-3 weeks from now. Okay, so that's a status update for now, and let's go to the questions, because I have a lot of questions today. And I also have some stuff here that I will show you on my Photoshop about some examples about the questions you asked. Okay, so let's go with the first one. Here are the first questions, and they are from Travis. I will post them on the chat. Okay, how often, how long do you paint, every day or week? Oh, Um, I paint or do my art stuff a lot. I try to balance my week, so I don't do the same work day after day all the time. So there is like one day I do, for example, a video for YouTube, and there's a one day that I do like hand painted animation, hand painted background, and there's one day I do Photoshop stuff, and there's one do I do my editing, or I do my how do you call it, sending stuff on Ticktail, and getting prints ready and getting stuff ready. So I try to vary it, and I try to go for walks, and I try to have days off that allow me to kind of reset and rest a little bit. So as for my week, I almost work all the time, but I try to vary what I do, so it does not feel like tedious, and I can reset and have a little bit of variation. And as for the day, I sleep long, so I start working at about 11 o'clock, and I have some breaks like in between. Most of the time, I use my watch. I don't have a watch right now, but I use my watch that reminds me like every 30 minutes to stand up and do some stuff around the house, for example, some cleaning or something like that. And I work for about 3 4 hours and then go for a walk and to eat something. And so for an hour or two, I have like a break, and then I work until I'm tired. So about probably until 9 or 10, sometimes longer. So that's kind of a long day of work. Sometimes when I'm really concentrated, I forget about the breaks and I forget about the like a lunch break in between, so I can work like without rest. But yeah, this is more or less what I do with my work. Okay, next question. This is also for from Travis. And if you have any additional questions or questions about the thing that I'm answering, just post on the chat. Okay, next question. How often do you get frustrated, discouraged at the outcome of the piece? Has the frustration decreased you as you have gotten better? The frustration does not decrease. I often get frustrated, especially when I'm starting a new thing and I'm not used to the technique that I'm using. For example, I was showing you the sketches I started to do in my Moleskine for the new project City of Waves that we are going to do with Kana later this year. But I'm really discouraged about the technique because I'm not used to it. So even though I try my best, it does not look like I would like it to look. So I'm kind of discouraged and frustrated. And but I know that this is a part of the process. Perfecting the technique and the look of a piece is just a part of the process. And also with backgrounds, this is really something I have almost every time I'm painting a complicated background. um, a background does not look good until, like, I don't know, you did a part of it at least until the 80% of how it should look like. So not everything, but a part of it is like 80% finished, and you can see, oh, okay, this is going to look okay when I finish the whole thing. But because a background can take like um, 3 days to finish if it's really difficult, so you can be frustrated for like 2 days working. So this is a thing that is often a thing. Yes. How do you handle perspective when drawing when the points are way off the edge of the paper? So I will switch to my Photoshop if I can. I hope nothing explodes. So, for example, let's say that we have paper that's like this big. I'll add a layer, and computer is really slow. I have like something like this. Make it slow. Make it smaller, like 1000. Okay, so I have something like this, and the perspective is kind of here, but you can always divide this. You can divide the grid that you already have into smaller parts, so you know that, okay, this thing that I wanted to draw like here, like you don't have to draw the whole line until like the infinity, but it's enough that you have like 2 points, then you already can 4 points, no? You can already do a lot of things. And the same goes for a perspective that's vertical. So if you have a vertical perspective that's kind of in space, so you cannot just uh, do the whole line from the vanishing point. You kind of eyeball it, like take half here and half here, and you can kind of eyeball the perspective. I do a lot of like eyeballing of perspective, so um, If it looks okay and it does not look weird, it's okay. And this is the rule of the thumb when dealing with perspective. Um, okay, so the next question, I'll do one from the chat. So Scotty asks, "Do you ever work on hot press paper?" No, but that's just because I don't like hot pressed paper. I mean, sometimes I do. Okay. Sometimes I work with hot pressed paper for works that I do, especially like I want this kind of flat look. I want to experiment a little and use different tools and not use the things that I think look the best for my style. Then yes, I experiment sometimes with like poster colors or acrylic gouache, or use paper in my moleskins, like the art series moleskins, which is kind of hot pressed, or the art the long moleskin, which is kind of hot pressed with just a little bit texture. So I use it sometimes, but if I want to choose a paper for my work, like Tokyo Storyfronts or the comic or whatever, I do like cold pressed paper. The same reason why I don't use like rough paper, because I don't think it looks good for my style. But to be honest, I did not manage to find hot pressed paper yet that is nice for watercolors, and makes me kind of want to use it more. It's good for gouache and acrylic gouache and poster colors. So when I want to do like experiment a little with painting like anime background style, then yes, I use it. But for my main work, no. Okay, next question. This is also for Travis and it's long, so I'll uh, probably answer it together with some other questions, because I got a lot of questions about colors and how I pick colors for my work. Okay, so the first question goes like this. Uh, Knowing which colors to pick to exaggerate color of the subject, a lot of people ask what color do you pick, because it's not actually I'm not asking that really. A lot of your paintings, you will pick very vibrant colors, but when you look at the reference photo, it's like plain gray. And also there are some other questions from you about colors, like Trails TM asked about the difficulties with shadows and highlights, and Yvonne Carpenter asks about choosing a good color combination. And yeah, so I will try to I will try to answer those questions like in one go. Okay, so okay, I'll post the question here. It's too long. No. Okay, I made it shorter. Okay, so I have some photos, like one photo that I made recently with my iPhone, and it's just this thing here. And this is actually just a street where I was walking to Studio Colorido on one of my uh, like days that I had meeting in the studio, and I liked this kind of corner building here, so maybe I will paint it or sketch it one day. So the thing that I look for in a reference photo like this are some colors that are not obvious, and colors that make this scene interesting. Um, so for example, here we have a nice shadow. Okay, I'll choose a color that is actually visible, like red. So here we have a nice shadow that has nice, adding nice texture to a wall that is otherwise kind of bleak and just white. So it's not interesting. But this wall here has nice kind of yellow color that we could emphasize, and also uh, it's kind this part here is kind of highlighted, um, this kind of warm yellow color, but the part of the building that is in shadow, so this part here, is kind of cool blue. So that's one combination of colors that we could use for this painting. And also this part here is like warm yellow. This is like the kind of dirty warm yellow, and this part is more like reddish blue um, color. Always, yeah, reddish blue. Let's say it's reddish blue because it's actually cool blue, right? Okay, so it's different in Japanese. And also what we have here is this kind of interesting violet building here, which we could also use like to emphasize this violet color here. And there are the flowers here which are really nice, and we could make them bigger and more visible, so add more of them here to make this kind of more interesting. There's like the highlight here on the wall, which is really nice, and this part is really nice. We could also add some flowers here, and this yellow thing is also really nice. And we have this shadow here which kind of cuts through the street and highlights the red part, which is really like this bluish red here, but warm reddish, like yellow red kind of part here. So this is the contrast we would use to make this picture kind of divided into two parts. So the yellowish part of the part that is highlighted by the light, and for the other things we would use kind of bluish red and reddish blue colors. Also, there are some details that we could use for our advantage, like this manhole here or the text here. So this is a really interesting thing, especially that we have the blue poster here in the middle and some blue details here on the pole. So that is making this thing kind of interesting. So before starting on a scene like this, is nice. It's nice to kind of dissect it and look at it this way and see the layers and see the shadow and hi Atelier Urso, and kind of think about the strategy that we will use for a scene like this. And I don't do this anymore actually, but a thing that I often did was taking my folder with references. So I have a reference folder, not one, a lot of reference folders that are actually on my Dropbox, so I can access them everywhere. And I would pick a image that has nice color combination that I think I could use. For example, something like this, which has the yellow colors and the blue colors. A little bit, it does not have the reds that we would need, a little bit here, but we could use it. Or something like this, maybe. I just save a lot of illustrations that I like the colors of, and I could use a palette like this for some of my works. I have a lot of pictures that I like because they have awesome colors, like this one by Florent Bassard. Okay, so for example, if we pick this one, we open it, and it's kind of hard to do on a small screen like this, but we could open it like this, and we could open the reference. Okay, and then, for example, we have the building with the wall, so we take like this yellow color. I will take a brush that is not laggy. Yeah, this one is okay. Okay, so we could take like this yellow color, for example, and start on like this part here, and we could take this red color and start on the part here, and we could take this color and start on the wall, and we could take like this blue color and start on the shadow. And when we kind of feel comfortable with the colors of the scene, so we know what we are doing more or less with the color scheme, then we could actually just close the color reference and use whatever colors we already have on the picture, because it's also really important not to add too much colors. Of course, we have to add the colors when there are details that we have to paint, and we did not use such colors yet, so we have to add some new colors to our palette. But to keep this consistent, it's nice to just use the colors that we already have on the picture, so we don't make too much like mess with the colors. The sky. You could use some classical paintings, like really old classic paintings. You can use some photos, but with photos you have to be kind of careful when you pick the colors, because most of the times the colors are noisy, so there are a lot of pixels that are different colors really close together, so it looks like it's one color but it's actually really noisy. So you have to pick the color picker tool and choose here not point sample but like average of like 11 pixels or something on a photo. Then when you pick a color, you will know that this is like an average of this area, so you are picking a color that is the one that you want, and not just a random pixel that is of this color. So this is one approach that I was using a lot to study and to kind of get a grip on color palettes, and just getting better with colors. So I would use, for example, when I was still at the university, I would use like Studio Ghibli files, or Makoto Shinkai's screen captures from his movies to use as a palette. So I just use these colors for like reference, and a different reference for the contents of the painting. So I would never like repaint these illustrations. Repaint this illustration. I would just use it as a reference for what colors combination would work. And actually I have not used this method for a long time, like I don't know, 3-4 years already. So when you kind of get used to painting and deciding your own colors, you don't have to do anything like this anymore, but it's really nice for studying. So you could go from here and just add details and add like highlights and shadows and still use the colors that are here, or just reuse the colors that you already have on the picture. Now, of course, I'm just doing like a color rough. So if you would be painting a proper illustration, you would actually, of course, use layers and make everything properly like divided, so you could go in and repair it really quickly and etc etc. So, but I sometimes like to do like one layer paintings also, especially on the iPad recently, because it feels kind of natural. And I would actually, yeah, but it's the same thing. You just display a reference of your you just display a reference of your topic, so just a photo of your, or you look at something that you're painting, and you display a reference of the colors, and then you try to match your watercolors with the color reference. So make some colors that you like on the illustration that you like, and it's the same with poster colors, and it's the same with like acrylics. It's a necessary skill that you have to have if you are painting for example animation backgrounds, because often you have to match uh, a background that is already painted by someone else. So even if you are working digitally, and even if you are working with just like watercolors or poster colors, it's the same process, so you can use the same thing. Of course, it's kind of easier with watercolors, because you can always use the same color for the same things. So I often use similar colors for the shadows, and often use similar colors for the highlights. I often use similar colors for like greenery and plants. So there are some patterns that I already know will work, and I use them often. So that's one thing that also you gain over time. So yeah, this is also a thing that you can do when working by hand, not digitally. It's the same rule. You just have to have a like scrap piece of paper next to your palette, so you can test the colors. So for example, I often use a book, like I will show you. So for example, here's the book. I don't use books that are like how to paint with watercolors or something like that. I just use books that I like illustrations that I think that are really high quality. So I have a book with illustrations like this, for example, with that are done with watercolors, and I would stand this on my desk and look at it as a color reference. So use this for my color reference, and I would just take watercolors, mix a color on a palette, test it on a scrap piece of watercolor paper, and then compare it with the book. So with my color reference, and I'll be like, okay, so the sky is probably like this blue, and but the shadows are probably kind of this red and this blue mixed, and this kind of looks like the thing I would like to have. So uh, it's the same method actually, but after few paintings you do over and over again using similar references because you like these colors, you start to kind of get the hang of the pattern and this kind of the way the person who did this uh, was thinking. So this is actually the best way how to learn a certain style of coloring. Of course, every artist has a different style, so it's nice to change your reference and not use the same reference all the time for the colors also. So yeah, this is everything has to be done with limits. I will actually, about this book, I will do probably a YouTube video about this book, because I'm really happy I got this book, and I will tell you more about this book in a future YouTube video. But this has some really nice art inside. Okay, let's see, another question. And there was also question about shadows and highlights. With shadows and okay, I can show you the cover once more, but you cannot buy the book, this book anymore. I bought this used in Japan, so it's not on sale anymore, and I was looking for it for a long time. So I will tell you more about it in the next video. And about the shadows and highlights, because Trails TM asks about the shadows and highlights, adding too much and too little paint. Yes, it's a book, Edo Tokyo Tatemono-en no Monogatari, I think. And it's a book about the Edo Tokyo Tatemono-en, so the Edo Tokyo Open Air Architectural Museum that was published in 95. And it was discontinued about 10 years ago, and there's a new version that has different contents and different cover and everything. But as you can probably say, the cover was done by Hayao Miyazaki, and the illustrations inside were done by Oga Kazuo, so the background director for Studio Ghibli movies, for example Totoro. So I was really looking for this book to just see the illustrations and see the content, and I found it recently. So I will show it more to you about in a next video. And okay, so about the shadows and highlights, the shadows and highlights are kind of difficult because they can be done in different ways. One of the thing that you can do with shadows and highlights is the thing that I was talking about few minutes before. Is like deciding the kind of scheme of things. So for example, we will decide that the highlights will be more or less yellowish colors, and the shadows will be kind of bluish reds, so bluish colors. You can also decide that the shadows will be greenish, or do it the other way around, so do it kind of afternoon kind of colors, so the shadows are kind of reddish and all the highlights are blue, so it's like early morning. Also scenes can be done like this. So this is a thing that you have to decide, and also you have to decide how wide is the spectrum that you will use. I will show you a little bit here again. So for example, I have this sketch I did here, and of course if you're doing it traditionally, you cannot do the thing that I'm doing right now, but you could do it before painting. So decide it in your head what you are kind of aiming for. So if I do the levels thing here, you can see that I have almost no blacks here, but if I take it like until here, this is how it would look like if you used all the spectrum. So the white parts are really white and the dark parts are really dark, and this is probably too much, especially with watercolors. It's really hard to get really blacks. You can do it if you really try, but you have good paper and good watercolors. But for watercolors, it's not really feasible to do something like this. So you'll probably end with something like this. in the end, if you use even less like of the spectrum, you will end up probably with something like this. So with something that's kind of flat. And it depends on, again, on what you are going for. If you are going for a picture that is really kind of pastel looking and this kind of sketchy style, so you don't use so intensive colors, it's also okay. But you have to kind of decide and stick to the theme that you decided on. It also comes with practice, I think, but um, it would be feasible to use a scrap piece of watercolor paper again and decide the darkest color I will use on this picture is this, and the lightest color I would use like on this picture is kind of this, and kind of operate between this spectrum of colors to have a reference point. So you could decide like, okay, the most dark like shadow will be this, and the like the most bright like highlight will be kind of this, and you have this spectrum here that you can use for your picture, and all the middle ground also that you could use for your picture to operate in between here. And you have to stick, like, you cannot just go and, okay, I will use this spectrum, but for this only part I will do like really black. That will break the concept of the painting and really stand out and be a kind of pain to fix later. So when you have a concept of your painting really decided, so okay, I will do the shadows kind of greenish and the highlights kind of yellowish, then you have to operate within those kind of parameters as good as you can. Of course, you cannot do everything with watercolors. For example, you cannot do like this kind of transition of blue and yellow because it will be green in between. So there are things that you can do in it digital, but you cannot do with watercolors. So you have to kind of keep it in mind, but kind of seeing the picture that you want to do in your mind's eye is what you will be told again and again, like in tutorials and stuff, but it's kind of impossible to imagine the picture before you even start at it because it's very complicated. I cannot do it. But if you kind of set yourself some rules, it gets easier. So it gets really easier if you set yourself a palette that you can use, and I will only use the colors from this picture. You can even like filter it to make it more like 16 colors or something. Like there are filters in Photoshop that you can do like 16 colors and or 6 colors and use only those colors for your picture. You could use a limited palette. If you paint with watercolors or with gouache, for example, you can use like 4 colors and that's it. There are really nice paintings done with by Mr. Gurney on YouTube that he explains about painting like with 4 colors or something, and you look at the painting like, whoa, he did it with only 4 colors. But yeah, you can mix a lot of stuff with even 3 colors. So if you have a palette that has like 40 colors or something like I use all the time, you have to kind of know what you're doing. But if you have 4 colors or 5, it's easier. It's easier to do stuff when you are limited actually. So that is also a nice way to limit yourself. Don't use black, for example, in your painting. I don't use black at all in my paintings. In my watercolor paintings, I don't use black. So I mix the dark tones, which also helps me kind of keep it nice and colorful and balanced, and it keeps it from getting kind of dirty and muddy. So that is also a nice thing to do. So you could like take the picture and I don't know where actually filter, probably stylize or something. Tiles or something. No, I don't know. But you can do like posterize is the thing filter. I don't know what it is. Adjustments posterize. I think. Yeah, number of colors like. No, I don't know. But you can do like you can do a filter that makes it like 6 colors or 8 colors or something, and then you could use it as your really simple limited palette. I don't use Photoshop filters, so I don't really know which one is it. Whatever. Okay. Let's get to the next question because we already like 35 minutes in. Okay. Can you tell us? It's from Kali Hagen. Can you tell us more about how you use Nickel poster paints? I recently bought some. Okay, I'll put this question here. I have to make it shorter because it doesn't fit the comment. Okay, Nickel poster colors or any poster colors come in two forms, like the tube and the jar, but the contents is the same. They are paints similar to gouache that are cheaper, so that's why the paints are used by animation industry in Japan to do backgrounds. Because you have to use a lot of paints to do backgrounds. Like you have 1,500 backgrounds to do, you use a lot of paint. And also they are kind of nice to use because if you have a lot of those jars, you can just put them on your desk, put a little bit of water on top of the paint, so it always has a layer like 2-3 millimeters of water on top of the paint, so it does not dry. And if you don't use it for longer, you just put a plastic sheet or something like big sheet of plastic on top, and you just gonna go away, and you don't have to close every paint every time you are not painting. And with those paint, they often use ceramic palettes like small dishes or bigger ones to mix the colors for their pleasure. And the interesting thing is that those paints are not waterproof when they are dry, so you could scrub them a little bit with your brush and kind of blend them together on your painting when they are dry. So that's a plus side, but also a minus side because you have to be careful when painting with layers. That's why I really prefer acrylic gouache to the poster color paints, because with acrylic gouache, when you paint once and there's a layer, when it dries you can paint on top of it and you don't have to worry that you will kind of mix and blend and pick up the layer that you put there before. But those paints, the poster color paints, are really similar to gouache, little less chalky, I think. And the Nickel paints especially are favored for their vibrant colors and everything. I did some paintings with the poster colors. For this, I actually use hot pressed paper, so paper that has not so much texture, but also is kind of thick. And the most interesting for me part with painting with poster colors was that Japanese animation artists that do the backgrounds, they actually wet the whole paper before starting to paint the first layer. So they wet the whole paper, and when the paper is completely wet and kind of floppy, they put it on the desk, and they paint the back layer, so like really far clouds and mountains, and the whole kind of more or less look of the painting in kind of one go, but everything is kind of blurry and textured because the whole paper is wet. And then they wait for it to dry a little bit, and they start to add details. And when the paper is completely dry and the paint is completely dry, they start to add hard lines that are for example, details of the trees and details of the buildings, and the details of the things that are in the foreground. So because you can layer those paints, and because you can add details later, even if they are white details on dark background, this kind of method of painting is really nice and really interesting to do, because you can get this kind of blurry kind of background, so you can show the distance with this really well, and have nice hard details without sweating about like saving the white spots with watercolors, and because you cannot paint over. So that was really nice with painting with poster colors, but you can also do it with gouache, and I actually prefer doing it with acrylic gouache, because they get waterproof when dry, so I don't have to worry about stuff getting mixed already on the paper. And there are some videos on YouTube that you could go and see. So there is a video of the master background artist Oga Kazuo painting an anime a background. I will link on to this video on the chat if I can. And it's really nice to see how he does it, and you can also watch some backgrounds from Studio Ghibli movies and kind of try to analyze it. You can buy books from Oga Kazuo. There are 2 books that he has with his backgrounds, and he also explains there about the tools. And to explain you a little bit, for those of you who haven't seen it, this is how the poster color jars look like, and this is Turner actually, but this is how the poster color tubes look like. So like this. So if you open a jar of paint like this, it actually this one is dry, but it usually has like a little bit of water on top, so the paint does not dry when it's like standing open on your desk all the time. So that's kind of interesting way to paint. Sure. And you can buy sets of those jars, and you can also buy sets of the tubes, and you can also buy empty jars, so you can mix your own colors and put them inside of a jar, which is interesting. Okay, so the last question from the questions I have saved, it's from Steph, and it's about details. I have to cut it in half. So the question is, I love how you are able to, in your art, to get the subject across with detail, but not too much detail. It seems I always get bogged down in trying to draw everything. So the picture ends cluttered and unfocused, and she like loses interest in like halfway through. And this is a thing that I had a lot of problem with when I was starting on animation backgrounds, and this is another thing that you get better when you're practicing a lot. And one of the advices that I can give to you is, um, usually when you are doing work, you tend to start with the part of the picture that you want to paint, and you try to avoid the part of the uh, picture that you don't want to paint, so probably the most difficult part. And it's often with my painting also. I used to start with the part I felt most confident, so like trees or sky or whatever. And when you start painting with this part, you tend to put a lot of details in this part, and then you when you go to the foreground where you actually have to put a lot of details to make the picture look okay, you are already tired and kind of, I'm done with this picture. So you give up, or try to just, you know, do it with the least amount of effort you can. So the first tip is to start with the part that is in the foreground and is most difficult for you, but you think it's the like main part of the picture. For example, in the photo that I showed you, I would start probably with this part, and probably here, like with this part here, because this is the foreground and this is the most difficult part, and this shadow here and this part here, the stairs here are the most difficult part probably to paint, but this is the most interesting part of this picture. So you start with this, and then you decide which parts you can just let go and not paint with details, but just with colors. And um, as Kaneki Shiba says, like, try to imagine if you were making a photo with lens with a camera that has really shallow depth of field, which part would be like the blurry part that would make the picture look cool. So you kind of, you can get like without the details, like in this part here and here, like just probably there would be like some shapes that make it feel like there are buildings, but just, you know, you don't have to put any details here. And this part also is not interesting, so there's like something here, but this part here is the most um important thing. So you have to start with this part, and probably like with this text, or like this part here, so you still have the power and the concentration to do it right, and then just add details as you go. And if it comes to details, so what to paint and what not to paint, um like the razor, the Occam's razor here is like, does it add anything to the um, overall value and the image that you have of the scene? You can paint the same picture with a lot of styles, so make it really simple or make it almost photorealistic. um, Personally, I think that more details is better, but you don't have to be photorealistic to add details. Uh, what I mean is, like, if you look for backgrounds, for example, from Ponyo or something like that, you can see that it's not photorealistic. It's kind of a story book, picture book kind of style, but at the same time it's kind of um it kind of has this realism to it. Trying to explain on with words. So for example, this is the picture I did uh, with my iPad while I was painting outside. So I focused here on like these elements here because I thought that they add a lot to the overall scene. So like the clock here, but there was a whole like insides here that you could see through the glass. But I was like, oh, okay, this is not important. So I did not paint this. But for example, the stones here, I just kind of made the shapes of them but not the details, because if I started to add details here I would never end this picture and it would become too cluttered. And again, this kind of sense of what to do comes from analyzing different people's art. So analyzing like backgrounds art or analyzing like illustrations and painting like classical paintings, also like seeing art and analyzing them from like layer by layer, and then trying to do this kind of similar effect in your own art. So it comes from like experience. Okay, I hope I didn't bore you to death with my answers. It's really hard to explain this kind of things, so probably with my next Q&A session or something like that, I will try to do some like live sketching or painting something really simple to also talk about the color choosing and kind of detail level choosing stuff that you asked for. Okay, let me. So if you have any questions for this part, feel free to ask them now. I will just have a look through the questions that you asked so far. Valentin says, you seem to really like writings on a drawing. Your plan is much more detailed than anything else. I like signs, and I like lettering. Okay, so I have here the jar of destiny. It doesn't have any text on it. It's the jar of destiny, and in the jar of destiny there are your names actually. So I will answer the questions that you are posting right now after this part, but this is the part, the jar of destiny, and the jar of destiny will decide who gets the books. There were about 60, more than 60 people, more than 60 of you who posted I wanted the book thing. So I have 2 sets to give away because most of the books that you see here will be sent to some places I have to send the book. So like my studios and some people that helped on the book, and some places that wanted a sample for like publishing opportunities and all kinds of stuff. So this pile will be gone soon, but from this pile I took 2 books to match the sticker sets. I only got like 3 of those stickers of these sticker set, I don't know, but 2 of those will also accompany for the books to you. And of course I will sign them with nice pen and everything. So okay, so the first person. Okay, I have to grab one. Okay, so the first, okay, you didn't see it, but I did not do anything with it. The first person is Valerie. Yay! It says Valerie. It's the nickname on Patreon. So I will contact you later, and so I can decide. So you can decide what to write in the sign. Okay. So there's the one more chance. I will mix it properly. Okay, I will do it now so you can see I have nothing in my hand. I feel like doing magic on YouTube or something. Okay, so one. The second person is Dominic Purain. Purain? Yay! While we are doing Q&A session, Kana is actually playing Monster Hunter all the time, so yeah. So we have two winners, which one is Valerie and the second one is Dominic Pulain, and I will contact you both on Patreon so you can give me your details and stuff so I can send the books to you. Okay. Yay! And actually the winner is online, so yeah, congratulations to you. I will contact you later on Patreon. So yeah. And most of the books are already the books that you have pre-ordered are already like really close to your houses, so probably if you haven't received a pre-ordered book still, that it should be really close to you. Okay, so that's that for the giveaway part. I will be doing more giveaways of stuff when I get stuff done. Those of you who are my Patreon supporters above $5 will get the Yuragi manga for free also when I finish it, so I want to finish it as fast as I can. So that's also a thing that you can look forward to, but I will also do some giveaways of the manga for the $1 supporters also, so yeah. Okay, so again, for some questions before my camera battery goes dead, for some questions that you asked before the giveaway, I was Inishi asks, which is actually Dominic, right? Asks where was it? I was wondering how you handle line weight with your pencil drawings. And this is actually something interesting because I can show you. This is how I manage my line with weight. So I have a lot of pencils, and mostly I use the Mitsubishi ones that I told you about many times. But because I'm doing a lot of pencil work for the backgrounds right now, I'm using all kinds of pencils that I have on my hands. So I use those Mitsubishi ones. I use some Faber-Castells, but the Faber-Castells are also okay. But you have to remember that the Faber-Castell, for example, B, is like Mitsubishi H, or something like this. So the Japanese pencils, like the Mitsubishi one and the Tombow ones, are really softer than European pencils. So it's good to just test them before you start doing something with them uh, on your art. And for me, I use pencils like for the Mitsubishi ones from H234B, because if you go softer than this, it actually, the line gets blurry and bleeds the how do you call it, the line makes watercolor dirty when you paint over it when you get softer. For more blacker lines, I use the Staedtler Mars Lumograph ones, because the black ones above 6B, so 6B and 7 and 8B, are more like really black, um, how do you call it, color pencil, like oily, than just a regular pencil. So they produce really black matte lines that are, you cannot erase them, but you also cannot uh, they don't how they bleed when you paint over them with watercolors. So they're really nice for really dark black lines on your watercolor paintings. And you can also use them on top of watercolors. So when you, after you paint with watercolors, you can add nice black lines with these pencils. So if you have 5-6 pencils of like nice gradation from like H to 3-4B, you can use hard pencils for things that are in the background, and you can use nice soft pencils for things that are closer, and you get this nice gradation of like kind of distance, and you can emphasize the things that you want to emphasize with this. So this is how I control the line with on my paintings, in my illustrations. But also, of course, nice sharpener that makes nice fine point is really important. I use an electric sharpener. Okay, my camera goes. I don't have batteries. Wait, I'll have a spare battery here. Okay. Either way, we will finish soon, probably. Okay, let's see if it goes live. It actually works. Yeah, nice. Okay. And focus. Okay. So you need a nice eraser that makes a nice sharp point for your pencil. And also if you I will show it to you digitally, but it's the same thing when you paint with when you sketch with pencils. Just a new file. The new file menu in the recent Photoshop is so slow. Okay, so let's say you are doing something like a line. So when you do a line with your pencil, it's nice to end it like this, so it kind of fades out. If you want to continue, so you can just continue it like this. If you stop the line, just hard stop like this, and then you try to continue it, you always get this kind of point that you can see. So this is one of the tricks that animator use to when they have to break the line and connect it again, they kind of let it fade and then start again like this. It's one of the things that you could practice with pencils. And the thing to avoid is correcting a line, like doing a line again. I almost never do it because it just makes the line kind of dirty and not dirty but not even, and the part that you corrected will stand out. It's better to just erase it and do it again than correct it, like paint, like draw the same line over and over. I almost never do it. So that's like two tips for for nice lines, pencil lines in your drawing. If you want a blacker, more intensive line, just use a softer pencil for this one. But I would not recommend just going over one line again and again. It almost never looks nice. Okay. Okay, so are there any more questions here? Yeah, Valentin said, you seem to really like writings on a drawing. I think that putting text in paintings or illustrations makes them feel realistic a lot. So I will show you an example. You have probably seen this, but if you see the Spirited Away, so with of Studio Ghibli, the fantastic world that they come to has a lot of those kind of buildings, and almost all of them have some text on them, like this kind of how do you call it, signs. And this trick kind of allows even more like fantastic places to suddenly be lived in. So it gives you the effect of okay, someone put this sign for someone to see here, so a part of us, there are other people living here and doing their own everyday business. So signs give a lot of realism to a scene, even if it's a city lived in by gods, for example. I really like the concept that gods and like those fantastic creatures need signs to know, okay, this is a shop with food, or this is a shop with, like, I don't know, like alcohol or something. So there are a lot of, and actually the signs here are nonsense, because they say like eyes or meh or something like that. So it's not the contents, but just like the image, the symbolism of a sign is really important. So more than the contents of a sign that you put on your illustration or your painting, the style of it matters. If it's an old sign, a new sign, or electronics shop sign, or car dealership kind of sign, if the style is realistic, the whole picture suddenly becomes kind of realistic. You can, I will show you one more example. Things from the flood. I always forget the guy's name. Simon Stalenhag, he is called. I'm probably not pronouncing his name right, but he does those really fantastic illustrations that look like screenshots from a movie or something. They are really, 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 really good. But one of the things that he does perfectly in those illustrations are texts and signs like on walls and like street signs and all kinds of billboards that add to the overall how do you call it um, atmosphere, to the mood of the picture. So I would really recommend seeing his works because it's awesome. I will post the link on the chat. Can I? I cannot. Well, I'll post his name then. Yeah, there's the art gallery, and it's actually okay. So this is a really nice example. So you have this illustration here, and it's really nice and realistic because it has um the proper air perspective and blurriness of things in the front, and it's really really nice. But what gives it the most realism are the signs, and actually the contents of the signs is kind of made up because it's like logos, like Burger King mixed with kind of weird fantastic things. But it's the typography, the look of the font, the look of the sign that makes the picture a lot more realistic. So this is really important. Also in movie making, you have to make a lot of made up signs for your movies, and for animation often when you paint animated backgrounds, you have to make a lot of made up signs for your backgrounds because you cannot use sometimes the official ones. I had to do some made up signs for my Tokyo Storefronts book because I could not use the Coca-Cola sign. So but when you get good at it, it really gives you an edge in painting scenery because it really looks more realistic, even if it's sometimes pain in the ass to just hand letter like Japanese letters in illustrations. But yeah, it's also kind of fun actually. Okay, so if there are any more questions, I will answer them, and if not, we'll quit for today, I think. I would actually like to paint some stuff in England and Scotland. I went to Scotland for some like a month and a half, probably more than 10 years ago, and I really liked it. I would like to spend some time painting things in like Scotland, England, also. But now I'm really focused about painting Japanese things because there are still a lot of things here that I would like to paint. Okay, it seems that we are okay, so that's it for this Q&A session. I showed you a lot of stuff. Thank you for coming, and thank you for commenting and talking to me live. Congratulations again to both of you who won the Tokyo Storyfronts book. I hope you will like it. I will contact you later for the details. To the rest of you, thank you for supporting me on Patreon. Because of your support, I'm able to do the stuff I'm doing, even though recently I'm really busy with the animation. I will be finishing the backgrounds soon, so I will be able to do the comic again and the my illustrations, and focus on doing the project with Kana, because in the next half of this year, instead of doing any commissions or anything, we will be focusing mostly on the City of Waves project. So your support is really, really appreciated. Because of your support, I'm able to pay the rent for this apartment and live in it, while I make new illustrations and materials for probably new book or something like this. So thank you. And I'm really happy about the book, and I'm really happy about that the book inspires you and other people to walk about and paint and look at the buildings in their city in a new way. So thank you for coming. If you have any more questions, just ask them on Patreon, and I will add them to my list. But probably the next Q&A session, I will try to set up it so I can show you more like techniques of doing colors and shadows, probably by hand. So that's a nice theme for the next session. Okay, so see you in the next one. As always, feel free to comment, and you already shared and subscribed, so I will not tell you to share and subscribe. And you already support me, so that's really nice, and I'll thank you for this. See you in the next video. Bye. Okay, so now I have to stop this.